As a retailer, you're in the business of selling products and making money. But if you're not paying close attention to your bottom line, you could be making some serious mistakes that are hurting your profitability. In this video, we're going to discuss some of the most common mistakes that bricks and mortar retailers make when it comes to profitability and why avoiding these mistakes is critical for long-term success in the retail industry. So if you're ready, we're going to take a deep dive into your retail business and see if we can take it to the next level and improve your profitability. So keep watching. It's about at this point, I would love it if you could smash that subscribe button and also hit that like button. And I'm going to basically run you through what I think are the common mistakes that brick and mortar store owners need to avoid when it comes to managing their profitability and also their revenue. So let's just roll into it. So these mistakes, when we do make them in our business, it leads to a whole heap of hurt and frustration because all of a sudden we are trying to figure out what is going on in our retail business. I mean, we think we're doing good. Our revenues are great, but at the end of the day, we find that we don't have enough money left over in the business to do really simple things like pay our suppliers, pay our team, reinvest in the business. A lot of those things I'll touch on later on. But if you've ever been in this situation, it is, rest assured, it is so common. It is something that happened to me very much in the beginning when I was running my pharmacy-based businesses, and it's a common problem that happens to a lot of retailers, simply because nobody has really taught us, like I always keep harping on about, how to manage profitability, how to manage our revenues. We're always sort of being told all the time to keep going with our revenue, but without much respect to profitability. So let me run through some of the common mistakes that brick and store retailers, store owners make. And, these are some of the things that you need to avoid as a bricks and mortar retailer. So the first thing is our profit margins, right? So profit margins, let me just run you through what that is. So just imagine, let's say you're a small brick and mortar clothing store. You've been in business for a few years and, you think things have been going pretty well. Your sales are decent. You've got a loyal customer base. But when you take a closer look at your finances, you realize that your profit margins are lower than you thought. But then you think, okay, I'm not too worried about it. After all, my sales are decent. I think I'm making some money. I think so. And, you figure as long as you keep bringing in customers and selling clothes and all the other accessories that you do in your boutique, everything will be fine. But as time starts to go on, you notice some troubling signs, right? Your cash flow is tight. And like I mentioned before, you're struggling to pay your bills on time. You're not able to invest in new inventory, which is so important in this retail game, or you're not being able to invest in your marketing campaigns. And then all of a sudden, your store is starting to look a little bit outdated compared to your competitors. And like, oh no. And then you start to realize that by ignoring your profit margins, you've put your business in a really precarious position. Without a solid understanding of your finances, you're not able to make informed decisions about your store's future. And you're not able to identify areas where you could be cutting costs or improving operations. And ultimately, you're not able to invest in your bricks and mortar store in the way that you need to. And so this is just one example of how ignoring your profit margins can hurt your brick and mortar store. So basically, without a clear focus on profitability, without a clear focus on your profit margins, you run the risk of making decisions that can have serious consequences for your business's long-term success. So it's really important that you stay on top of your finances and make profitability a top priority if you want to continue to build or start to build a thriving brick and mortar business. And that's one of the major mistakes that we make, is not really understanding our profit margins. So I would really implore you to have a look at that in your retail business, because that is such a big mistake that bricks and mortar retailers make. So the next one is when it comes to pricing. So under here, basically, it's just we fail to optimize our pricing for maximum profitability. So it's Basically, if we're not maximizing our pricing, so some of the common mistakes that we make as retailers is we either set prices too high or we set prices too low. And I think that more too low is a common thing amongst us brick and mortar retailers, because we think that we need to be cheaper to be able to attract the crowds that we want into our store and to have a successful business. Another common pricing mistake that we make is we fail to account for all costs. I think that's so important. uh, like I continue to mention, if you're not working with somebody, it's really challenging for you to determine as a bricks and mortar retailer what your actual operating costs are. Sure, we get our reports from our bookkeeper, but how do you then factor that in? And how do you then use that information to ensure that you're selling, your products and services at the right margin? So that's really important. The other mistake that we make is, as retailers, we don't adjust our pricing based on market trends and competitions. So, and that competition around us, right? So all this basically, this will impact your business's profitability, which is what we're talking about. It's going to erode our profit margins. There's a chance that if we don't get this right, we're going to lose our customers to our competitors. Therefore, we are going to ultimately damage our reputation, which in the long term is going to hinder our success, and it's going to slow down our ability to grow, attract customers, and basically just grow the business. So the whole pricing thing seems relatively easy in the beginning, but you will just not believe how many of us retailers aren't across the whole pricing situation, right? So let me move on now to the next mistake that we make as retailers, and that is the whole expenses part of the deal. And many of us brick and mortar store owners neglect our expenses. You know, we know that we need to reduce our expenses. We know that expenses are a part of it, but very few of us actually give it the attention it needs. And that's a really big mistake. So proper expense management can help your store and yourself improve profitability and your long-term success in the store. So basically, just the simple act of, tracking your common expenses. And some of the common mistakes that we make are failing to track our expenses. We tend to, if we don't have a system in place to manage our expenses, we're going to be overspending on unnecessary items. We probably don't have a system in place for negotiating with vendors for better pricing, all those kind of things. And that can impact your profitability. It'll reduce your profit margins. It'll, like I said, reduce your or limit your ability to invest in growth in your business. And then you're going to get into some cash flow problems, right? So it's really important that as a bricks and mortar retailer, that we have a system in place of managing our expenses, and really look at identifying areas where we can cut costs, get better pricing on our products and services that we get from our suppliers. And this way, we are going to free up cash flow and we're going to start to make more money. So it sounds really basic, but you will not believe how many of us retailers overlook this part. And we overlook it because we're spending so much time living in the day-to-day of our business that we rarely carve out time for this important thing that we need to do in our business, right? Cool. So the next mistake that we make as bricks and mortar retailers when it comes to profitability is that, we're really slow to adapt to the market. So I've called this adaptation. And what I mean is adaptation to the changing market conditions like we are in retail. For many of us, this is, fast moving consumer goods, and the market is always changing. And we need to be on top of that. We need to be able to adapt and be responsive to changes in the marketplace. And for many of us, it's really important that we stay on top of our game when it comes to changes in the market. If we fail to adapt, this is going to be very detrimental. Yeah, it's going to be super detrimental to our profitability and our long-term success. So, let me just go back to the example of the boutique or the clothing store. The basic thing there is if we're starting to sell outdated styles, in our inventory makeup, we're likely going to lose customers to competitors who are offering more trendy options. And it's really just simple as that, is being in touch with your ideal client, which I harp upon all the time, and making sure that we are adapting to the market. And underneath that adapting, the whole adapting thing involves making sure that we're ordering right. We are making sure that we have enough stock, that we're not over ordering. All those kind of things are part of being adaptable. And staying adaptable and responsive to changes in the market is critical for your profitability and long-term success as a brick and mortar retailer. And it is just one of those things that we fail miserably. And I see this a lot with our small to medium sized bricks and mortar retailers. We just tend to accumulate stock, which is hilarious. And we just kind of, if you bought your store for the first time, or many of us have stock, like legacy stock that we're not getting rid of, legacy stock that we have in our stores, and we're not adapting fast enough for the market. If we are adapting, or some of us aren't adapting at all, like we have these really old stores with really shitty amounts of stock and the stuff that really doesn't appeal. And as I continue to harp on again, it's about that target market. We really haven't identified who our target market is. It makes it really challenging for us to adapt to the market. So that's a really big mistake. One of the really big mistakes when it comes to adaptation and also profitability in our stores. The fifth and final thing that I mistake with respect to profitability that is often overlooked is our customers, right? So, and when I'm talking about customers here, I'm not only talking about understanding our ideal customers, which I touched on earlier, but also the importance of customer retention. It's something that is so important for our long-term profitability. I'm sure you've heard the statistics as a retailer where it costs you a lot more money to attract new customers rather than it costs you a lot more money to get new customers, whereas to retain your existing ones. And because it's so much easier if we look after our current customers. When we focus on our customer retention, we increase the customer lifetime value. And just in case you're not sure, this term customer lifetime value, it's such an important metric or a key performance indicator that you really should know in your retail business. And basically, the lifetime value is trying to get a sense of what is the total amount a customer will spend at your store over their lifetime and the lifetime of your store. So you need to work out, what are you selling? How often will they come into your store? The other part of customer retention, which has negative consequences on your business, which is so important in the market that we're trading in as bricks and mortar retailers, and how one of the ways that we can compete with our e-commerce online brothers and sisters is the fact that we don't pay enough attention to really good customer service. So if we don't provide good customer service, and we don't follow up with our customers after a purchase, just manual things. Remember, these are the things that our grandparents, the older retailers back in the day did really, really well. And so this is basically just taking care of your customers and making sure that they return back to your store. If you don't do this, this will lead to decreased sales, decreased profitability. So ultimately, in terms of customer retention, you should be looking at ways that you can, improve that. Obviously, having a loyalty program, which I've spoken about at length, is so important. And if you don't have one, you should get one. The other low-hanging fruit when it comes to profitability and customers is, as retailers, I think we do a very, very poor job of addressing customer complaints and customer issues. It is such a tremendous opportunity for us, not only to engage with our clients and customers, but also to understand where we may have fallen short. So just simple things like answering your Google reviews. If you don't answer them, there's that whole effect of they could tell their friends, and basically word of mouth can lead to a negative impact to your business, and decrease your ability to acquire new customers. But on the other hand, if you focus on customer retention, you provide the excellent customer service, follow up with your customers, you have a loyalty program in place, and you create that loyalty with your clients and customers, your customers will continue to shop in your store. And guess what? Tell your friends about it. Tell their friends about it as well. It's the same thing that happens to you, right? If you have a positive experience anywhere, you're more than likely to tell your friends. And the same thing happens within your store. And you're going to create a positive reputation for your business. And that's only going to lead to more sales and more profitability. So There you have it. There is what I think are the common mistakes that retailers make, bricks and mortar retailers make, that hurt their profitability in their own business. But I'd love to hear from you below. What do you think are some other common mistakes that you make as retailers with respect to profitability in your store? And as always, if you want some help with this stuff, make sure you send me a message. And if you haven't already, make sure you join our community on Facebook. We're a vibrant community, an engaged community of brick and mortar retail store owners. It's a great place to ask questions, to network, to get an understanding of what's going on in the retail industry and how you can grow your retail business further. Until next time, great to chat, and we shall speak soon. Thank you very much, and ciao.